Hello and welcome to the Basil Breen Boombox. We have upgraded the setup a little bit. We now have a little desk, a few knickknacks. We have this picture of Bailey, R.I.P., that was given to me by an ex-girlfriend. You know, before she left me, she had the decency to draw my dog for me. So, you know, fair play to her. And we also got this other little thing from Canada, from my sister sent over. Beware of the bears. And what else? We have our caffeine. We have our backup caffeine. Decided do this early while I have my caffeine window to better facilitate the talking, hopefully, unless I get inside my own head too much, which is going to be a lot easier to do now that I have this headphone. I'm hearing myself echo into the right side of my head. I don't know if this is actually going to be a good thing or not, but you see it on all the podcasts, you know what I mean? They have their little headphones, they have their microphone, they have their other little setup. So if I'm going to go forward with this, I better try and emulate what looks to be working elsewhere. And if you don't take yourself seriously, I suppose no one else will. Which directly contradicts another belief that I hold, in that you shouldn't take yourself too seriously. But we're human, and we're able to hold contradictory beliefs. And we're very hypocritical, so don't be judging me, you know what I mean? You're human as well, I imagine. Unless somehow Sheba's got the word out about this podcast to the canines. But anyway, say no more. I have some notes here, you know, we're getting a bit more organised. Try to keep the rants a little bit more intelligible, if that is the word. And concise, hopefully. Probably not concise. But as you can see, we have the new format. This sitting room has been transformed into so many different things throughout its life cycle as a room. With my brother, Paddy Jobsman, he records in here, he works in here. And then I've turned this into now a podcast studio, but also a recording studio thanks to my little couch fort. I'll probably get a video on the couch fort out pretty soon. People were asking me about it. So we're getting a lot of use out of this room, you know. And depending on what way you face the camera, you'll get a totally different vibe and potentially keep the illusion going that this isn't the same room, you know. You're seeing different rooms all the time. But yeah, I'm trying to better understand how to go about doing this kind of creative work. It's very difficult, I think, to create stuff where you're just talking and hoping that you're just going to strike gold or something of value for people to listen to. And then when you listen back to it, it's even more difficult because you're just like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Oh, you got yourself into that hole there. And it's painful, but there's definitely a lot of room for growth. And now we're just taking it a step further. So I'm actually, when I'm monitoring myself now, I better not get too focused on this. But it will allow me in real time, hopefully, to better track the quality of the audio, the plosives, like the probably that was very annoying, especially if you're wearing earphones. But you know, we're iterating, we're improving, and I'm also trying to better improve my relationship with social media in general. It's difficult when you're putting out, let's say, original music that you've written and poured a lot of yourself into, and then you put it out to the world. It's very like, will they like it? Will people like it? Please like it. and it's kind of a reflection of you and the essence of you in that song. So you're putting a lot of yourself out there, and then with this, you're putting a lot of yourself out there again in a way that's unfiltered, unedited, and very, very vulnerable in a way. So I'm hoping that through this, in the same way that busking kind of made me a lot more bulletproof, there's very little that kind of, I'm definitely capable of being embarrassed. The idea of doing gigs and open mics, that kind of fills me with a little bit of fear. But in most situations, I don't fear what I have to say, or if I'm going to make a show of myself, because I've already done enough of that. And then with this, if we can reduce the blocks that there's a really good quote actually from the new Beatles documentary. If you haven't watched it, you should definitely watch it. It's just unbelievable. But Paul McCartney's on the piano, and he's explaining to one of the sound lads about the songwriting process. And he says, unless you stop yourself, no one will stop you. So the reason that we are our own worst enemy in a sense, especially with creative work, in that when you get inside your own head, like writer's block, for example, another good quote on that is, writer's block is the fear of writing badly. Because if you didn't care about writing badly or producing bad work, it would free you to basically just produce whatever, and you wouldn't care too much about it. But the fact that you have a certain standard, or you have a certain idea of the quality of the work and at what level it should be at, compared to other people that you've seen in the world, then you're going to just debilitate yourself, because you're like, oh, I can't write like this, so what's the even point? And then you don't start. When I see people that are able to just speak verbatim and just hit gold and home runs every time, I'm just like, Jesus, how are they able to do that? And they weren't, well, some of them were born with a natural gift of the gab, but there had to have been improvements over time, no matter how much natural ability they had. And no matter what level you're at in whatever it is that you want to do, the only way to get better is to actually just do it. And you're not going to get better by not doing it. And you're going to have to look like a worse version of the person that you would like to be before you turn into that other person. So you just gotta get in there and do it. But the other thing with social media, especially when you're putting yourself out there like this, it's too seductive in relation to checking the response that you're getting, when really it doesn't actually matter the response at all, really. The pursuit should be good enough, but you also do have to be cognizant of the general vibe of the stuff that you're putting out, because there could be value in the type of response or the response that you're not getting, because that can dictate, perhaps the quality of the content isn't good, like when I go down this path, or maybe people like it when I go in this path. So you can better understand how you can facilitate well, it depends on what you want to do, but for me, I'd like to be able to produce content that people found somewhat valuable and not a complete waste of time. You know what I mean? And I think one thing I can do is, in real time, try and, at a zoomed out level, try and look at the whole process and speak to what is in my mind during the whole process in an honest manner, to kind of hopefully liberate people to do the same, and to show people that they can do whatever they want. But I get sidetracked so easily. But one thing, the social media, just checking in too much. You should really post and forget about whatever it is. It's good, to get back to people that are commenting and other things like that, but you can do that in blocks. Perhaps you can check once a day, once every week would be even better. I think once a day is what I'm trying to shoot for now, that I check. But, when I release something that day, that moment, I'm like, oh, checking how it's going, when it doesn't actually matter, and it's pointless. It really is pointless, because let's say you check every hour or every 10 minutes, then like the result after a day is going to be the same no matter what, and after a week is going to be the same. So you just need to not really care about the checking in, basically, because it's a pointless exercise, and it's just a time wasting exercise. It's really procrastination. When I find that I'm busy with something, that's when I'll start like just checking in. I have all these habits, but I've done things now to block myself from being able to get in. I have my passwords stored on my laptop in a text file for any of you hackers out there who want to try and get in. And I don't have any of the apps on my phone, so the only way I can get the passwords is if I copy and paste it into whatever social media account I'm trying to get into. And the other thing is that I don't have my passwords being saved on my Google account, because a way to reduce the amount of times you are doing a particular activity or behavior is to make it difficult for yourself. If you are trying to cut down on the amount of television that you're watching, put the television in the attic. So every time you have to watch television, you have to take it out of the attic. Now that's a kind of convoluted example. The basic principles are from this book called Atomic Habits. So if you want to improve the like play the guitar, you put the guitar in the room that you're usually in, so you're just more likelihood of you picking it up. Make the habits easy, and make the stuff that you want to reduce harder, and then that way, you'll have better outcomes that you're more happy with. So you need to, with this kind of thing, you need to basically you need to dance like nobody is watching. You need to just be able to perform. This is a performance, you know what I mean? And be free to just perform in the way that you are doing it, and do it as if nobody is watching. Like that's what life is about, really. Well, it's what it should really be about, because we only have such a finite amount of time here to explore our experience in this vessel of a meat bag that we have, and we need to make the most out of that. So being able to pursue what's in your heart, or inclinations in your mind, you need to just be able to do that in a way that you're not afraid to do it. And I think, one thing that, there's definitely negatives to your parents dying when you were young, but there's a positive side in that I don't have anybody to answer to in terms of parents, so I'm not worried about the judgment from the parents. I'm not being pressured into certain ideas or ways of doing things, and it doesn't have to be explicit. You know what I mean? Because your parents are kind of your ideal in a way, and through their actions and words, they're molding you into a particular direction. And when you don't have that pressure, or not even pressure, but just that ideal to aspire to, that you have to find your own ideal in a way. And there's definitely, I don't know what the counter case would be if I did have parents versus if obviously I've had parents, everyone has parents, but losing them, using them young enough, meant that I had to find my own path, my own ideal, and make up my own kind of way to measure myself in the world. And I actually think a lot of people won't ever grow up until their parents die, in a way. And it's something that everyone is going to go through. Another part of that is I was always worried, especially my dad, after my mom died, that I always was worried that he was going to die. And it was such a debilitating worry. And then when he actually died, it was like, it was like this massive weight had been lifted off me. And everyone is going to go through the death of their parents. And it's just a terrible part of life, unfortunately. But at least that part of my life, I've gotten over it and I've come through it, and it's over now. And I don't have to worry about when my parents are going to die and they're going to get old and all that. So like that bit has also been taken away. So, you know, it's a tough one, but we have to somehow, even if in whatever situation we're in, we need to make sure that we're doing things for ourselves. Obviously influence from other people is good, that you respect and love, and they have good intentions, but at the end of the day, you have to be making the decisions for yourself, and sometimes you're going to go against the grain of what your parents, your friends, or what the people around you are thinking what's best for you, but you just got to pursue it. And if I can show people to dance as if no one was watching, then that for me would be a worthy use of my time. So that's another part of being here in front of you on this desk, and now I'm just scrolling. These notes are so funny, you know what I mean? I've just gone completely off the rails now, but I would like to now discuss the current standing of the oh jeez, I had to make sure this was recording. Hopefully this is recording. Jesus, we're in a lot. This has gone on for ages. Anyway, the recording process. We have been recording some music, as you can probably see. I got some covers. But one thing that's been letting me down is the quality of the guitar audio. So I have invested in a new acoustic guitar pickup that, you know, it's the best one I could find on the market anyway. And I'm going to install that into my guitar so to improve the sound quality on my guitar. Because right now I'm using this sort of, you know, it's just a off-the-shelf, cheap enough pickup that it doesn't sound that great, to be honest. And it's fine for the covers, but I think if I'm going to do the originals in the same way that I've been doing the covers, I should try and get a better sounding guitar audio for the tracks, and also for if I'm going to perform at gigs or open mics, you know, I need to start investing in the sound of my guitar. It's like one of them big wins. You know, it's an investment that bleeds into loads of other things. So I'm putting the original recordings on hold for now. And a producer actually has reached out to me, and he seems pretty legit. His name is Allison, and we're going to try and record some music together. He's very interested, very well versed in this space, so I'm looking forward to seeing how we get on with that. In the meantime, while I wait for this new piece of kit to get here, and then we'll get back to recording the originals. I had two originals, the video done, the audio done and edited. Like, I put a good bit of work into it already. But the first song I recorded, I didn't have the couch for it, which was another thing that helped to improve the quality of the audio. And then the second recording I did, Regret, which is the name of the song, it went on for too long. And there's a part of the song that I can kind of reduce to make it a little bit shorter. It ended up running over 5 minutes. I was like, geez, it doesn't have to be that long. I don't mind when a song is long, but it doesn't have to be that long. So that's basically my new thinking there. The theme of this whole thing is iteration and learning by doing. You're always learning from the previous step, the previous time you've done something. If you've never done something before, the next time you do it, if you're acutely aware of what went well and what didn't, then your understanding going forward is going to benefit from the previous outing. So you need to always be, I think, a life where you're doing something where there's a possibility for growth and learning. Then, I think that's all you can really ask for. And we're here now trying to get the juices going with our secondary caffeine. I think I've been talking for a bit longer than what I imagined I would be. 20 minutes here. I did want to get into some stuff in relation to Mr. Joe Rogan, which is hilarious because obviously I've only a handful of listeners, so who really cares what I have to say? But there's just something in me that I need to get out. And it's funny because there is a sense of, I can't really find a word for it, but there's a feeling that I shouldn't speak about this. Even though I'm just a small time content creator, I have a feeling that, Jesus, I want to self-censor myself, as in I have something that I want to talk about, but I don't want to talk about it in case it rubs people up the wrong way, and that's a very bad place to be. And imagine if I'm feeling that. Imagine people with platforms, people with bigger followings and audiences and responsibilities. Imagine how they feel when they can't get something off their chest because they're worried of how the consensus of the majority is going to look onto this, or onto you. So that makes me feel like you'd have to say something then, because if you don't, you need to, whatever space you're in, it's like be the change you want to see in the world. Even at the micro level, you can have some sort of impact, and you need to carry yourself in a way that is based in truth and striving for your own version of whatever fair is. And I have something in me chest that I need to get out, and it's just been terrible to see what's happened to him, because I've listened to him for 50 to 100 hours, and he's completely changed my life in many positive ways. And you're seeing people trying to belittle him as if he's just a UFC commentator and just saying all these disparaging things, and they've never really listened to him, and they don't understand that, like, fundamentally, I don't think he's a bad person. He has no kind of hate in his heart, and he's taught me to really think critically and think for myself and question everything. You know what I mean? But, that being said, like, I don't want to get too into the weeds. I want to kind of take a more zoomed out view. He has a massive responsibility as the biggest podcast in the world to be careful with the information that he's putting out. And I don't care what side you're on, but from my perspective, he could have had a more balanced approach in some of the more controversial podcasts relating to the COVID stuff. I think the best way to do it is to get people with opposing viewpoints and have them discuss and debate it, because having somebody with just one viewpoint, being able to just discuss from their viewpoint without being challenged by another expert, you need people to be challenged in strong ways. And he's had good results with he had meat versus plant debate, like vegetarianism versus paleo meat diet. And I after watching that, I was like, the vegan lad came out so strong, and it changed my whole perspective on it. Now I still eat meat, you know what I mean, but seeing it in a debate format. But when the other lad was on his own, the paleo meat lad, he was sounding like a pure expert, and everything was just like, Jesus, he's speaking the gospel here. But then when you had someone who was able to challenge him, it changed everything about how you would view this person. And he's had other debates as well with saturated fat in relation to heart disease, with someone pro and against, and it gives you a much more rounded viewpoint of the whole landscape. So I think if you're gonna get into stuff where people's health is kind of on the line, or it's in relation to people's health, you need to be careful, especially if you have the biggest podcast in the world. So, that's all I'll say. But we all make mistakes as well. We're all fallible. And, he's recorded hours and hours and hours of content. And it's just, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to say the wrong thing. You're going to do the wrong thing. But, he's able to put his hand up, in my opinion, when he's wrong. And, I think he'll make the adjustments. But I think it's just the responsibility of having the biggest podcast in the world. You have to treat that responsibility with the weight that it deserves, in a way. I'm not saying he hasn't completely failed in that respect, but yeah, I think for any contentious issues where there is potential for impacts on people's health and well-being, then you need to have both viewpoints, because we're just blinded by our own biases and our want to be right and win, regardless of whatever side of whatever debate you fall on. You're gonna be biased and look for the informations that are supporting your viewpoint, and it can really blind, especially when you get into an argument with someone, your ability to be objective and nuanced about whatever it is. But you have to realize that other people, just like you, believe wholeheartedly that they are right. So you have to kind of imagine for a minute what it would like to step into that other person's shoes, and they feel just as right as you do. And you have to try and build a kind of understanding that there's a million ways to interpret the world. And when you end up on a side versus another side, that's when you're really in danger of deluding yourself and deluding your ideas and opinions, because you become very dogmatic, and no matter what the other side does or says or whatever, you can't look at it in a way that's objective, because all you're looking to do is counter and say this and say, what about this, what about that? And you need a more, because the answer is always in the middle. There's always parts of both sides of each debate or opinion that need to be taken into consideration and used to kind of build a more complete picture of the landscape. So you just have to realize yourself, you're a human. We love getting on this side and that side, but that's the real danger. And you could, in this regard, I'm trying to zoom out, because I love Joe Rogan, but yeah, I can see there are some problems. But the other side, some of the criticisms I can just tell that they've never really given them the time. And I hate when people belittle people in a way, with offhanded comments, and trying to just belittle them by, things like, oh, he's just a UFC commentator. He was in Fear Factor. His character on a TV show was a conspiracy nut. These are things that I've read that you have to be careful when you're reading something and realize, okay, what is the lens that this person is looking through? Because every journalistic institution and news institution on both sides of the aisle, they have a particular viewpoint and they're viewing the information in a certain way, and that is going to produce bias. So you need to be aware of what bias that they are looking at this piece of information or news story in, so then you can make the adjustments when you're reading it. And you're like, okay, yeah, this is a bit hyperbolic because, this is their viewpoint. They're further on whatever side. You need to try and remain objective. And it's very hard, when you're reading something that you really disagree with, to be objective. But you need to try and parse and sift through the weeds and avoid becoming on a team. That's the big thing. Just avoid becoming on a team, unless it's the Basil Breen Boombox team, and you want to buy some t-shirts, which we haven't made yet. Oh jeez, this has gone on for a while, and this has been difficult, not because of the content or the subject matter, just because I've noticed during this whole thing that I've been making mistakes and getting myself into holes and not being able to articulate myself and making mistakes with words. And it's hard to not be aware every time that happens. And it's hard to really just be free of that. But, I think as I do this, hopefully the ability to liberate myself from my own mind will get better. I think the headphone as well, I'm just hearing myself as I'm speaking in real time coming into my ear, and that's made me feel even more uncomfortable. But I think overall, hopefully I'm moving in a good direction with this whole thing. I'll watch this back and be like, oh Jesus, wasn't great, but you did alright. I covered me points, and we just got to keep going with this thing and see how much I can improve my ability to speak. And obviously, if I had somebody here with me to get me out of these holes and to fill in the gaps where they need to be filled, that would be great. I wouldn't be so self-conscious or self-aware. But when you're speaking for 33 minutes on your own, it's hard. But that's it. I'll leave it there and go on.